Soccerex connected, day one. A very good afternoon, or good some of you in North, South. Ben Jacobs with you. Moving on to our next panel very shortly, but a reminder to engage, network, use the hashtag Soccerex Connected if you're talking to us via social media, and ask plenty of questions. I know the next panel is going to be really popular and full of conflicting opinions. We've also got your chance to win one of a number of fantastic signed shirts. If you go to @Soccerex, you'll see the selection on show. Because today is sponsored by the Johan Cruyff Institute, and Cruyff himself had many different nicknames, Joppy, which means number 14 in Dutch, and also the Saviour. We've decided to ask you a very simple question, which is this: what is your nickname, or what is your favourite footballer nickname? And loads of you have been in touch. Jill says Chikorito, Little P. Thank you for that one. Pro and Beach Soccer. I know that's not your real name, but that is your Twitter handle. Has been in touch and said my nickname is El Tigre de Notre from my travels in South America. Ross Auer has flagged the Black Spider. That, of course, is the Golden Ball winner Lev Yashin, one of the most famous and iconic football figures. And talking of football history, remember 6 o'clock we look back on the 1930 World Cup. Callum Patterson says, I don't think this nickname will win, but it makes me laugh anyway. It's simple. It's CP for Callum Patterson. My nickname is actually very similar. It's based on my initials, but I can't say any more, because if you take the initials of Ben Jacobs, you will realize that that nickname isn't clean enough to talk about at Soccerex Connected. But thank you, Callum, for getting in contact with me. And Matthew Balau, who's in Belgium, says, I'm known as the Verminator. If you care to explain a little bit more, feel free to tweet us back. So if you want to win that signed shirt and you get to pick which one from our selection, just tell me your nickname or your favorite footballer's nickname. Let's move on though to our 4 o'clock GMT panel now, and it's probably the best named that we have all week. It's called Changing Offside to Keep Fans Onside. Give our script writers a little bit of a bonus for that one, and I'm really looking forward to this. It's obviously going to have a lot of different opinions, some that believe that the offside rule in particular, but technology more broadly, is a little bit too micromanaged, others that simply want to try and promote accuracy. But the key question here is, how are fans responding to technology, specifically around the offside rule and VAR a little bit more broadly? So we're going to be talking about armpits and toes, perhaps as much as full-time results, and it will be really intriguing to see how our experts think lines, both literally and metaphorically, should be drawn. And incidentally, David Dean, part of the Soccerex family, was telling us at our last conference about Arsene Wenger hoping to try and introduce automatic offsides into the mix too, so I'm sure that that will be touched upon as well. We're delighted then to be joined by Howard Webb, the general manager of Pro Referees and a former Premier League referee himself, Ben Grossman, who is a minority owner at Minnesota United and also an MLS co-owner and a founding investor in the excellent new franchise Angel City FC, and Jeff Agus, the VP of MLS, and our moderator is a legend of his own. I wonder whether he's got a nickname. He's a familiar face though, that's for sure. Former US defender and now lead Fox Sports studio analyst. It is a very good afternoon to Alexei Lalith.
All right. Thank you, BJ. I appreciate it. Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are coming from. I am coming to you here from the great city of Los Angeles. I'm thrilled to be here. I am pantsless, and shout out to all my other pantsless Zoomers out there. But it doesn't matter. It's 2021. There's no judgment anyway. All right, we got a great panel. We got a great topic, as Ben was saying. First off, let me thank you for having me back to Soccerex and moderating. Yes, I want to make sure I get this right. Changing Offside to Keep Fans Onside panel. And as Ben was saying, I am joined by three experts. Well, we'll see at the end of the show whether we agree that they are experts. Howard Webb, general manager of the Professional Referee Organization, one of the most recognizable referee figures in global soccer, world renowned. You've seen him all over the place refereeing, and now some of the most significant matches out the Premier League, UEFA, Champions League, FIFA international competitions, probably some under 10 games, who knows, all over the place in his incredible career. In his current role, he's the GM of the Professional Referee Organization. He manages a full-time technical staff and is responsible for identifying and training and assessing. You know him, you love him, beautiful, bald, gorgeous man, and a wonderful source of knowledge when it comes to refereeing and the game itself. Jeff Agus, longtime friend, friend. So I know this guy intimately. I actually roomed with him back in the 1900s with the national team, the U.S. national team. He went on to win 5 MLS Cup champions. He's a U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer. As we mentioned, the Senior Vice President of Competition and Medical Administration. He's responsible for improving the quality of the on-field product in Major League Soccer. And also he provided input and technical development and disciplinary matters, and serves as the league liaison to MLS coaches, all sorts of stuff. He also spearheaded the VAR initiative alongside Pro, which makes him a perfect person to talk to. And then Ben Grossman, a longtime friend and colleague, media and tech advisor and investor, as we mentioned, who's worked in soccer since way back in the 1900s, and just a hell of a guy. Founding co-owner of both Minnesota United in Major League Soccer and recently announced Angel City FC in the NWSL. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into it. And I guess where I want to start with this is give some context as to how we got here, what's going on right now, and then looking forward when it comes to what VAR is and isn't. And I want to be upfront right now. When VAR first was talked about, I was against it because I was scared that it would hurt my ability to do my job. One of the things I love about sports, and in particular soccer, is the nuance, is the gray area, is the debate and the discussion and the argument around the game. And I was worried that VAR was going to come in and it was just going to be black and white, and it was going to get, for lack of a better word, boring. I think we can all agree, whether we like VAR or not, that that has not necessarily happened. We are still talking about things. We are still discussing things. We are still arguing about things. There are still decisions being made that are subjective, but those decisions are being made by men and women who have more information at hand when they are making those ultimate decisions. I'd like to start with Jeff, because Major League Soccer was at the forefront of VAR technology implementation, Jeff. And can you just give us a little synopsis of how and why this was decided, and some of the permutations that you went through early on to implement this in a professional league?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody as well. Thanks for having me on this panel. I certainly appreciate it. This should be an interesting conversation. MLS had always wanted to implement video review, and we thought that fans in the stadiums having more information than referees wasn't good for our game. And so even before the implementation of video review in 2017, our owners were committed to investing in this type of technology and this initiative. And so we've been advocating for this for a long, long time. And finally, I think with the Dutch coming in, the Germans coming in, there was a number of competitions who really wanted to trial this to see if it would actually improve the game. Look, I think it has. I think what we're looking at is ways that we can improve the game. And I think the discussion now is not about what it does, but about the execution of the initiative itself. And so we believe strongly that in the United States and in Canada, that it is an improvement for the game. Our sports landscape here demands video review. We have it in American football and basketball, and so it's part of our sports culture. And we were one of the last sports in the U.S. and Canada to implement. So this was certainly long overdue, and we believe it's been a very positive advancement for our game.
All right, so now you say you want to implement it, but now you got to actually get somebody to implement it and govern it and oversee it. Howard, I'm going to turn to you. When this was decided to happen, first off, I'd like to get your just initial thoughts on VAR and the way that you think about it and how it has changed the game and how it has changed how your colleagues go about doing their job, and then obviously how you fundamentally went about trying to implement it in a league.
Yeah, hi Alexi, and hi everybody. Great to be on this panel. Speaking about something that I'm pretty passionate about, not only the game of football, soccer, but also VAR. I can cast my mind back to 10 years ago and seeing colleagues make some pretty significant errors on the field, not by choice, not by wanting not to be accurate, but just because they didn't have the information available. Made the best decision they could at the time, which was pretty impactful for that game, for maybe a season, for a tournament progression, and also pretty impactful on that official's career, and could do nothing about it. And yet people were sat at home with information on a replay, on a mobile phone, and they knew more than the referee did. I can remember giving decisions in games, in Premier League games or Champions League games, maybe a decision to give a penalty or a free kick outside the penalty area, giving the decision based on the information I had, but knowing that people at home in 10 seconds would know if I was right or not. And I was a fan of introducing VAR a long time ago, and I know a lot of my colleagues were as well. So when this opportunity came along through the sort of foresight that people like Jeff Agus brought and other people around the world, I, for one, was delighted, and I know a lot of our officials were as well. If you speak to any referee now going into a big game, the day before the game and saying, listen, we can take this system away or we can keep it. Do you want to have it in tomorrow's big game? They'd all say, yes, thank you, we like it. But one of the things we always had to be careful was not changing the basic way the game is played and not shifting the refereeing into a booth somewhere. Good refereeing starts on the field. And there's a lot of subjectivity in this sport of ours. We understand that. We were told from day one when we started refereeing that there are 17 laws, but law 18, common sense, is one of the most important. And having credibility and refereeing in the spirit of the law is also really important. So it's not really black and white. And I think I said to you some time ago, listen, you're still going to have talking points. You're still going to have subjectivity. But what VAR does do, it cuts out those really clear errors. It takes away a whole swathe of obvious situations that are wrong, and we can put those right in the moment. And it also makes referees more confident, in my opinion. If you're an assistant referee who keeps your flag down in the early part of the game on a close offside situation, you're not certain, but you keep it down, you're giving benefit of the doubt to the attacking team, and that team scores, that's the only goal of the game. You've got a voice in the back of your head for 85 minutes saying, you might have got a mistake there, you might have made that decision wrong. Now, within 10 or 15 seconds, you've got a colleague in your earpiece saying, check complete, and you've not made a mistake, and you can keep focused on the next decision rather than worrying about the last one. So a lot of benefits that are unseen, really. But I think the main thing that we tried to do in implementing this in MLS back in 2017 was trying to stay really true to minimum interference, not getting too involved, and managing expectations of you guys in the media, the clubs, the coaches, the players, the fans, by saying, hey, we're not going to clarify and clear up every situation because there is subjectivity. But what we can tell you is that we're going to cut out a whole swathe of clear errors that are made inadvertently, but at least, we're going to capture the clear handballs that score goals. In England, I'm an Englishman. I remember Maradona scoring in '86, or Thierry Henry handling the ball against Ireland. I remember these things. The referee would have made a different decision with the information. We can cut those out. We can cut the clear offside situations out. We'll talk about offside in a moment. And I think we've done a pretty good job of managing expectations and delivering a product that cuts out those clear errors.
Ben, you are not only an owner, you are also a fan. We are on a text chat back and forth that is now years long, and a lot of it actually has to do with VAR. I will die on the VAR hill. I actually love it. I think that it has helped the game. It has certainly changed the game. But there are those, and I think at times you veer into this, that think that we have created a monster. I first want to ask you, as an owner, how and why this was something that you, and not just you individually, but the league decided that this was something they want to do, because as an owner, you're still a fan, and these types of decisions can affect things in the moment, but they can also have bigger repercussions along the way. So can you give us a little peek into the boardroom, if you will, when this was discussed?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be back at Soccerex, and congrats to all my friends at Soccerex for putting on what's going to be a great week, and hope everybody gets to join, not just us, but a lot of the other panels. Lex, it's a great question, and here's the prism with which I use to look at it, both as somebody who works with teams and also, we work together at Fox Sports bringing this product on television. There was a recent interview by a prominent reporter here in America named John Orand, who said that MLS, it's just an inevitability that it's going to rise to the level of the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and other leagues like that. It's everybody in the business just thinks it's going to happen. That's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. We've had a great period of growth, but we don't grow if we don't keep the most important people happy, and that's our fans. And that's our fans who buy their tickets and come to our stadiums. And that's our fans who turn on the TV and watch people like us blather on about the games while they're going on. And that's how we look at it, Lex. Is it good for the game? Is it good for the product? Nobody is sitting around when they're talking about VAR saying, how can we ruin the game? How can we make it worse? Despite what you may think, especially when it goes against your team. Howard knows, we don't agree with every call. We don't agree with all the implementation. He may hear from us once in a while. Although I'm proud of myself, I laid off the text this year. Good year for me. We'll see how it goes this year, Howard. But yeah, Alex, we just look at it as, is it making the product better? And to what both Jeff and Howard have talked about, we think that the idea of VAR does make the game better. Can the implementation get better? Absolutely. And it will. And I give a ton of credit to, not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but what we've done at Major League Soccer, we've always been at the forefront and willing to take some risks and push the envelope. And really, that's an important thing, because there has to be a level of experimentation in this as we get it right. We'll try things. Some of them will work. Some of them won't work. We'll change on the fly. That's how the game is going to evolve, not just here in America, but everywhere.
Jeff, has this train left the station, in that there are those that argue that they want to return to the way it was? And some of it's generational. There is a generation that's going to grow up with VAR as part of their game, and the stoppages that we have and the delayed gratification that we have and the secondary type of celebration that we have is just going to become much more commonplace. And that's how they're going to view it. But there's certainly a generation that longs and pines for that moment when the celebration isn't interrupted, or we don't have those moments. Do you see any potential for it to go back? And I'm going to assume that you're going to say no. And rather than just pat yourselves on the back for what you have done from an MLS standpoint, justify why you think it is good for the game and good for the product.
Well, the horse is out of the barn. I don't think we're going back. Technology is part of our game. Technology is part of all businesses now, and it's part of improving sports. And I think it's arbitrary to determine whether you land on one side or the other. The outcomes overall are going to be improved. You're going to get many more right than you get wrong. And really, that's the goal. And so our fans, our players, our coaches, staffs, owners, they just want to get to the right outcome. Howard had mentioned the handball by Henry or the hand of God by Maradona. People just want to get to the right decision so these types of things don't live in some level of infamy. You're always going to have some degree of gray. This is a beautiful game. This is a game that lives in those areas. And even though you move to new technology and video review, for example, you're still going to have a lot of those water cooler discussions. This comes down to the execution of how you implement the initiative. And nobody's going to get it right 100% of the time, because there are subjective decisions that have to be made. Allowing an official to review a possible clear and obvious error can only improve our game. And I think in the long run, with automation, with technology, it'll only improve.
You said get the call right. And this was the mantra for many, many years. We just want to get the call right. And look, from a television perspective, if the leagues aren't doing it and using this technology, you know damn well that we are going to use it. And we are going to have stuff on the screen, which is going to show that this got wrong. But when you say get the call right, at what cost? Because we talk about, the timing involved. And yes, there is a subjective nature to it right now. But at what cost to a game that you rightly talked about is unique in its flow, and always has been unique in its flow relative to many other sports, without the stops and starts, without timeouts. So fundamentally changing the way the game is viewed, that is ultimately the cost. Is that a cost that you think this game should be willing to pay?
Well, the old adage is the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you're never going to get two people to agree on the same type of beauty. And so what may look beautiful to you or I, discrepancies. And again, I think that's what makes our game great. But ultimately, the better outcomes that we can have, and the less we talk about all potential issues that happen on the field. Did the referee make a mistake on purpose? Did the official not see this? You've got a chance now to go to see the play again. And that's really important to the game.
All right, you cut out a little bit there, Jeff, but I just assumed that you were saying how great I was. So, all right, Howard. Howard, same thing to you, a little bit more about how good it is for the game. And you mentioned a little bit about how it makes the referee's job easier at times, maybe difficult in some strange ways. But we don't necessarily care about the referees. Okay, we care about the game. So looking at it just from a pure game perspective, why do you think that it is good for the game?
Yeah, obviously I do, because we know we're going to, you know, not have scandal in the game. You're not going to have something that's clearly wrongly impacted the outcome of the game, which leaves a sour taste in everybody's mouth, really. We just have to make sure when we implement this that we stay true to what attracts all of us that are on this panel that are tuning in to this beautiful game of ours: the flow, the rhythm, the tempo. You know, there's more damage done to the game when a referee stands there with his finger to his ear or her ear for 3 minutes while people just don't know what's happening. So a lot of the work that we do around the implementation of VAR is about being efficient, as efficient as we can be, understanding that sometimes when you've got to slow things down, you know, if you're going to do this, you've got to do it properly. You can't just do it, you know, half-hearted and just look at certain aspects of the play. Sometimes it can be pretty complicated. So there are times when we need to take our time. But most of the times we can be fairly efficient. We can do all the work in the background without anybody even knowing that's happening. Players go off and celebrate the goal. Please do so. Enjoy the moment. There's a small chance we're going to take it back. And if we take it back, it's because it shouldn't have stood in the first place. But that's not going to happen too often. And at the end of the day, we want to add credibility to the officiating team, so people accept the decisions much more readily. We actually send our officials out to the screen every single time because we think there's a real value in the officials seeing the action, seeing why something's been taken away, so they can then go back and manage the players, and the players will accept the final decision much more readily. So we think the outcomes of the game are cleaner. They're more credible. There's no big errors that are going to affect a season's work. And I think additionally, you know, so people, as long as it's working behind the scenes, they know that everything is being checked, then they're accepting of that. I think one of the things we have to do, of course, is make sure that we communicate as best we can, and we're still working on that. We're still trying to make sure that the people who are watching at home or in the stadium feel that they are equipped with the information and that it's not just all a mystery what's happening in front of them, because then they will disengage and they'll lose trust in the system. And that's something that I think we all have to work on.
To that point, again, Howard, how much of the frustration, and there is plenty of frustration and even some anger out there with regards to VAR, how much of that frustration is with VAR, or is it with the laws themselves or the application of the laws?
I think what VAR has done and exposed is certain aspects of the laws of the game that don't really sit that comfortably with this new technology. So we're seeing goals now being disallowed for offside that previously would have been allowed to stand, and there wouldn't have been too much talk. It was a close call. And for years we've been telling assistant referees, if it is close, keep your flag down, give the benefit of the doubt to the attacking team. Both teams will benefit when they're attacking. And that's been an accepted practice. Now we're taking goals away for really small margins that wouldn't otherwise have been taken away. But it's a challenge, isn't it? Because if we're wanting to use the technology to clear errors, then, and the technology allows us to examine things in such fine margin, then where do we not do that? And you guys in the media, you're going to show whether somebody's onside or offside. So that has definitely changed the dynamic of the game somewhat. Goals that would have been accepted and allowed to stand have now been taken away. So because of that, we need to somehow shift the equilibrium a little bit back towards the attacking team. So I know there's some work being done around possible law changes in offside, maybe making offside only punishable where a player maybe has an attacking player has part of their body overlapping a defender, even if they're leaning forward. That'll shift the balance back towards the attacking team. We'll be giving goals, if we do that, that wouldn't have previously been given. They would have been penalised for being offside. And we're still going to have a point where we've got to measure something. However we put the line, it's going to be a point where there's going to be a judgment made about whether it's offside or not. But we're just going to shift the balance back to the attacking team to redress what we've kind of lost in the benefit to attacking football. More goals are going to be scored. So there's some of the conversations that we're looking at the moment to try to redress that balance of goals being taken away. And yeah, you know, it's opened up a whole host of other conversations around laws of the game, how we can tweak them to fit within this modern world of VAR.
Yeah, I mean, we often say, you know, you can't be a little pregnant, right? And you got to ultimately draw that line and pick wherever that line is. That's where the conversation and a lot of the controversy is going to come from. But you still got to draw it somewhere. And you know, we were talking earlier about how big that line is, how small that line is. It doesn't change the fact that at some point, something or somebody has to draw the line. Obviously, with the technology that we have, we can make it as clear as possible. But still, it has to be enter on a keyboard, and then that line goes up, and then the conversation ensues. Ben, question to you: how have your fans, and you speak to them directly, how do you think your fans, and more generally MLS fans, how do you think that they've received VAR and the implementation and having it as part of their MLS experience?
Yeah, I think one thing I'll be completely honest with you. And I just talked to our great stadium guys at Allianz Field in Minnesota about this the other day. Daniel Claxton and Justin Borrell, give them a little shout out because they do such a great job with our atmosphere in Minnesota. They say that the lack of information to the ticket holders, to the people in our stadium, is the biggest complaint they get of their entire experience, is the fact that they feel shut out potentially of the biggest defining moment of the thing that they have purchased a ticket to come to. That's a massive, massive issue. And Howard knows this. It's no secret. It's not a point of, you know, we're all working on it together, obviously, but we know this, that shame on us if the people in that stadium are treated the worst of anybody when it comes to soccer. That's just not good enough. And it's something that we're, you know, Howard and Jeff and everybody are working very hard to solve, because there's the issue of, you don't want to incite the crowd and do all of that, but with the way you use replays and all that stuff. And that's a real issue, of course, and something we're very cognizant of. But on the same token, again, it's just, I don't want somebody who's taken their time, their money and everything and given it to us to share in this great experience, to come away being, you know, there's nothing more important in American sport than a goal in soccer, right? All our other sports are higher scoring and all that. A goal in soccer is unbelievable experience, unbelievable euphoria. It changes games more than any score in any other sport, without a doubt. And you have to give our most important people full vision into what is going on. So again, something we really, really have to work on a lot, Lex. And on the TV side, here's what I worry about. Honestly, I worry about, again, growing the product, Lex. There's been so much attention paid to VAR. And even we do it in our studio shows at halftime and after the game. If there's a big VAR call, we're going to be talking about it, showing it 100 times, all that. For the good of the game, I want that time to be devoted to growing stars, to talking about great storylines, great teams and all of that, instead of just getting deeper and deeper into these little minuscule referees' decisions. So again, it comes back to the product for me. And that's one of my big worries, is that we're talking about VAR and officials' decisions too much when we should be using that time to talk about other things.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily worried about that, because I think it elicits a good conversation and a good debate, regardless. And I know your focus is much more on, you know, the quality of the product and stuff like that. But ultimately, for us, from a television perspective, we want to make sure that people are engaged, and we want to make sure that what we are talking about and the things that we are discussing are things that they find interesting. They don't have to agree with us. Sure. But they have to be engaged. So I'm not worried about that, which is why I mentioned when I was initially wary of VAR changing just fundamentally the way that we see the game and losing some of that debate and that argument, I was happy to see that wasn't the case, and we still have that as part of what we're doing. You wanted to add something?
Well, yeah, I mean, thank you very much to Southampton and Aston Villa for creating a great promotion for this panel over the weekend. The call that happened with Danny Ings on the late offside call. If you haven't seen it, late in the game, Danny Ings scores for Southampton against Villa. It is ruled back on offside because his sleeve, which is part of the offside decision, was past the rear end of the last defender. And they drew the line and showed us all of that, right? And huge, massive decision. Everybody's talking about it. Is that good for the game or not? I don't know. Yes, it gets people talking. It's great television, great media and all that stuff. But, now you've got everybody talking about that decision. I guess you could say at least they're talking about the game.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't have known about it, Ben. Honestly, I wouldn't have known about it without that happening. I can't watch every single game going on right now. Right. And yes, you want to highlight great goals and everything like that. I mean, look, fundamentally, at its core, Diego Maradona scored a goal with his hand. Okay, okay, and that's, I know that he did something else in that game, but those types of things matter. Let me shift to Jeff. Because Ben was talking about the desire to make sure that people in the stadium aren't without information. And oftentimes, to be quite honest, sometimes at home when you're watching it on television, you are privy to more information. That certainly can't be the case. So what are you actually doing to fix that problem?
Yeah, look, that's a huge topic for us. Education, information, especially for fans that are in the stadiums. We don't have as many fans today due to COVID, but when fans come back, it is critical to make sure that fans in the stadiums, fans at homes, all have as much information as possible. And so we are certainly advocates of trying to provide that. We do a number of different things. We use a social media platform. We have a Twitter handle that provides the information on a review, the outcome of that review. We do, Pro does a weekly segment that does a review of all of the games, the most controversial areas. We have in-game communications with our broadcast to try to provide more support. And so this constant flow of information and education, and this doesn't stop, because if you stop educating people, you stop informing people, they fill it with whatever information they want. There's a vacuum there. And so we have to continue to make sure that our fans, our players, our coaches, our important key stakeholders have as much information as possible. And look, at the end of the day, we may disagree with the outcome, but we at least have the same process. We at least know how the decision came to be, and that's really critical to this initiative.
Howard, one way to look at how far VAR has come in such a short period of time is to watch a game without VAR. And I find myself, when that happens, saying, oh, going to the VAR, and yet it's not there. It's become now such a huge part of the game and such a part of viewing that the way I view a game, the way the players play the game, we see them with their arms behind the back. We see the dramatic reduction in terms of all the craziness that went on in the box. And it still goes on a little bit, but certainly not to the extent, because they know the eye is out there. Could you speak a little bit to you mentioned it a little bit earlier, to how this has changed the way the individual referees go about it? Not just the good way, because we know it has helped them and give them an extra tool, but maybe some of the behavior that needs to be curtailed, or that has inadvertently forced them to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do.
Yeah. And by the way, I fully agree with you. I support a team further down the English football pyramid who plays in a league that doesn't have VAR, and I'll be watching the game. I'll stream the game every weekend, and I'll think there's a handball in the attacking phase of play there, and the referee allows it to go on. The team scores against my team. I think we need to look at it again, and you realise that goal is going to stand, and you think, where's VAR? We said from day one to our officials, we said, listen, don't even think about VAR. When you're refereeing the game, do it as normal. Make the decisions that you would normally make. Do everything that you've done before, get in the right position, use all of your cognitive ability to, recognize what might happen, and then have the confidence to make a decision. And then only when you've made the call, consider the fact that VAR is going to check that decision. Don't let that impact your decision beforehand. Don't not make a decision because you know there's somebody else watching. But we're dealing with human beings, of course, and they're all slightly different. And I can see that it's impacted some slightly more than others. Some are really good at just focusing on their job and doing what they do. Some experienced referees, I think, have been a little bit put out of balance by knowing that VAR exists. But, as we come through now with more and more officials who are really familiar with this, they're going to only, in the future, only ever know refereeing with VAR at the highest level. So we try to make sure that they don't let it impact their decision making. They make the decision, and then the VAR checks, was that a clear error? And that's a human judgment. That's a VAR making a determination. Is the decision clearly wrong? Not was it right, but was it clearly wrong? They're two different questions, because I've worked on TV for a couple of years and done some analysis at halftime, full time. You guys, ex-international players, you can't agree if something's a penalty sometimes. And you've got vast experience in the game. So who says that you're right and the other person's wrong? At the end of the day, somebody's got to make a judgment, and we want that to be the referee. And we only want the VAR to get in when it's obvious that the decision is wrong. It's not about getting it right. It's about rectifying clearly wrong decisions. Somewhere that we have seen quite an impact on the actual officiating is with the assistants keeping their flags down, delaying the flags. And there's an obvious reason why that happens, because if the flag goes up early, the whistle goes, the game stops, the player goes through and scores, but we can't reset that play. That's over. By delaying the flag, still making the judgment in the mind, we know it's close, we're going to flag if there was no VAR, but we're just going to slow the flag raising down to allow the play to come to a natural conclusion. And if that's a goal, the flag then goes up to say, my judgment is offside, but I've opened a window for the VAR to check. That's a really useful additional added extra for VAR to capture those wrong flags that sometimes rule out good goals. But it does open up that little window where players can come together, physically collide that wouldn't otherwise have happened. So it's a bit of a balance of benefits, risk assessment about how beneficial that is. So we try to only do that in areas where it's really clearly a good attacking opportunity, not something out wide, not something really near the halfway line. Again, just because we don't want to expose the players to too much risk, when the chances are they probably are offside because the assistants are good at what they do. But we're always seeking feedback from people. Have we got this right? Are we in the right place in terms of how much we do delay flags, for example? Is the game accepting of what we're trying to do here, which is try to have a positive impact? In other words, don't rule out good goals unnecessarily, because as Ben says, scoring goals in football is the best thing in sport. It's a low-scoring game. We have to capture good goals, and we try to do what we can to make that happen. But it's a bit of a balance.
Howard, I got a question from somebody who is watching us here that would wants us to kind of expound on, I guess it's a concept of clear and obvious. And we talk about the subjective nature of our game and wanting to maintain that, but recognizing we're giving people more tools in order to make more informed decisions. The clear and obvious phrase is something that gets thrown out each and every weekend. Ben and I on our text, it's clear and obvious. What's that clear and obvious? Wasn't that clear and obvious? First off, can you just clarify that clear and obvious was made to put words to it, but within that there was an understanding that even in that framework it was going to be subjective? And is there anything more frustrating out there that you see from people who are critical and are apprehensive about this than, I guess, the multiple definitions and the subjective nature of what is clear and obvious?
Yeah. First of all, I'll be really candid here and say, defining clear and obvious has been probably the biggest challenge that we've had from day one. I came to the US in 2017 to head up the VAR implementation in MLS. And we did more work on trying to be consistent around recognizing clear and obvious errors than anything else, really. We work on process, we work on efficiencies and what have you. But working on clear and obvious was a challenge. And we spent a lot of time with our group of officials going through so many video situations, trying to narrow that scope of what people consider to be clear and obvious errors. Because don't forget, every situation is slightly different. We're dealing with different human beings here. And we did a really good job of narrowing that down. We still see some left field interventions from VARs who think something's clear and obviously wrong when their peer group and everybody else outside of that VAR booth doesn't think it's clear and obvious. We're trying to minimize those errors all of the time. Some things are easier to identify as being clearly and obviously wrong. Some of the more factual things, was a penalty given when the foul was clearly outside? They're easy. The more difficult situations are the penalty situations, or sometimes the serious foul play tackles. And, we give considerations, a lot of sort of like various considerations for the VARs to think about what to look for. But the first question they have to ask, like I said earlier, is, was the decision clearly wrong in their opinion? And to determine whether it was clearly wrong, was there anything that they could sort of like use to support the on-field decision? And if they can find considerations to support the on-field decision, even they might think, it's probably not the decision I would have given, it's not the best decision, but I can see why the referee on the day has given it. We tell the VAR, leave it alone. Leave it alone. It's a judgment call based on that individual referee's opinion. Only intervene when there are no considerations that support the on-field decision that was made. So, two players come together holding in the penalty area. It might be a soft penalty. Leave it alone. We don't want to re-referee the game. Now, that's our philosophy here in the US and Canada in Major League Soccer. In other parts of the world, there might be a different philosophy. I know other competitions have much more likelihood of intervention by the VAR because the feedback from fans, media there, the clubs is, we want the referee to go and look at things on a regular basis. We don't believe in that. We think that this should be left for things that smack you in the face, come off the screen as being wrong, That's why VAR was introduced, in our opinion, not to settle a 70-30 argument, and the referee gives a 30% decision, the 70% of the world disagree with it. We flip it this way, there's still 30% of the people that think it should have stayed as the original decision. So let's go for those really clear and obvious errors. And that's where we do most of our work.
All right, we got a little less than 10 minutes left, and I want to go around and kind of get people to project and see the future. And you mentioned, Howard, that people are doing VAR differently in different places. It's nuanced, but they're differently in different places. For example, I see a future where referees are allowed to communicate. We started off this panel talking about how, especially here in North America, we are accustomed to technology and games and sports using that technology. I see a future where the ability, especially when you're trying to inform people, where referees can much more so talk to the audience, talk to the stadium, can communicate going forward. So I'd like to go around, and whether it's that or something else that you see how this game evolving relative to VAR, I'd just like to see if we have some thoughts on that. I'm going to start with you, Ben. I know you were shaking your head with the clear and obvious talk a second ago, so I hope you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, clear and obvious. First of all, Lex, if that's not the next name of your band, shame on you. Clear and obvious is just a great soccer band name waiting to happen. Yeah, I mean, look, I'll just touch on clear and obvious really quickly. I actually think sometimes those three words are part of the problem with VAR. It goes back to what we said earlier, where a lot of people's problem really isn't with VAR, it's with the laws. Like even the manager of Southampton, that thing we talked about before, he wasn't complaining about VAR. He said if it's offside, it's offside. It's the rule. It is what it is. So clear and obvious, that could be a whole other hour, Lex. We'll leave that alone. But your point, what you brought up, is something I feel really passionate about, and that is transparency. We have seen transparency in the VAR booth tried in multiple sports, in multiple leagues. You've seen it in rugby. You've seen it in minor league American football here in the U.S. And here in America, we saw a little bit of it during a tournament that we held at the beginning of this season called MLS is Back, which we did, where you got a little bit of a window into there. And I think what that does is it humanizes the decision a lot. It humanizes the referees. Instead of all of us thinking they're behind a curtain trying to screw over your team, that you really can see how these decisions are being made and kind of feel a little bit more invested in it in a positive way, hopefully. So that's the one thing for me I would love us to work towards. And I know there's a lot of people who agree with me, and maybe we'll get there, but it's not that easy. That transparency for the fans would be a massive, massive positive.
Jeff, it's easy to say, it's a little harder to actually implement it. What do you see for the future when it comes to VAR relative to MLS or the bigger game?
Yeah, look, I think Ben knocked it out of the park. We have to improve transparency. We are 100% supportive of these types of initiatives where we can communicate to fans. It's done in every U.S. sport here. It's expected to do. I think it would take a lot of the issues and the questions out of the game, not just what the decision was, but how the decision came to be. It doesn't require a long and elaborate explanation. It can be done very succinctly, as we've seen in other U.S. sports. I think there's other technology that we can embrace and enhance. Everything from smart watches to smart devices. Can we get automated limb tracking for offsides? There's so much technology that can be implemented into the game to further improve and refine the decisions of the officials, so we get less of these millimeter decisions and more of the right outcomes. And I think the other thing that Ben and Howard have touched on is, we're shining a light on the laws, and should the laws be changed given these minute, decisions that are being made around the world. Ultimately, I think as a group, Howard and I both sit on a FIFA panel that's meant to improve VAR with other competitions around the world, and our goal is to make sure that it's advancing, and we believe that the best parts are ahead of us, not behind us.
Howard, thoughts on the communication, interaction actually with referees and the audience going forward as a potential thing to come in the future? And by the way, even expanding VAR to be more than, the four parameters, the goals, the reds, the penalties, and mistaken identity.
Yeah, I think we're happy with the parameters as they are. We've talked at the beginning about minimum interference. I'm happy with where it sits at the moment. We've been trying different things. We've behind the scenes been trialing referees making announcements to the stadium over the PA. We think that's something that we might be able to implement some point down the line. And as Ben said, you know, we've seen in MLS's back some announcements being broadcast as well. There's still some work to be done around that. So we're on board with that type of thing. You know, I agree that anything that can keep people informed is going to make the entire process more credible, which is what we want. I think one thing that I'd like to see is the ability to make decisions more quickly. When you look at goal line technology, which has been in competitions for a long time now, you know, nearly 10 years, it came into the Premier League, I think, in 2013. We accept it. Everybody accepts it. You know, it's very quick, it's instantaneous, and even if it's only a few millimeters where the ball hasn't quite crossed the line, they put it on a big screen and the fans go, okay, we accept it. But it's really quick. You know, you don't celebrate the goal for 3 minutes and then find out, you know, it wasn't over. It's done and dusted there and then. And I think if we can get automated offside technology that tells the assistant and the referee whether somebody's offside, you know, in live time, that will be a big benefit, because then we can act on that information immediately, that we can see that a player's offside. As soon as they get involved in the game, we can flag them without having to allow the goal to be scored. Fans celebrate, and then a minute and a half later, the goal is taken away. And that's what I think does some of the damage, if you like. It's like seen as this interfering thing because of a really small margin. But the margin would be accepted, like it is in goal line technology, if the information was there immediately and you manage expectations in a much better way by intervening immediately. And as Jeff says, I know there's some work being done around limb tracking technology, and we'll see where that one goes.
Howard, a couple minutes left before we're done here. What's some of the most irritating or frustrating comments and or questions and or accusations that you get? Even though you're not necessarily on the field, you're still the figurehead. What frustrates you the most when it comes to the way that fans look at VAR? Like I said, 2 minutes.
Well, it's not you, Alexi. I mean, it's not you guys at Fox who do a great job every week, but you'll still hear broadcasters saying, why is that not gone to VAR? You know, where's VAR, sort of thing? And I just want to get hold of the TV and say, we've checked it. It's not a clear and obvious error. I don't mind people saying, you know, in our opinion, this is something that is a clear error and it should be reviewed. I don't mind that. That's absolutely fine. That's an opinion. But what does drive me crazy is when people say, you know, why are they not using VAR for this? We use it every time. In MLS, every goal is checked. In every competition, every goal is checked. And you know something, in MLS, actually, there's a really big success story in MLS in that of all the goals that were scored in 2020, only, I think, 2.5% ended up in a video review. So 97.5% of goals are scored, celebrated, and allowed to stand without the referee ever going to the screen. Everyone is checked. And only, I think, 2 out of, you know, nearly 1,000 goals should have been cancelled that weren't. I mean, the days before VAR, that number would have been much higher. So for me, it's a big success story.
Well, I think we can all agree that we are living in a VAR world. And from my perspective, I am a VAR fan. I love it. I will fight to the death with people that don't like it, including my good friend, Ben. I want to thank everybody on this panel. I want to thank Soccerex for having us. VAR is not going away. And as I said before, there is a whole generation right now that will grow up with VAR and not think twice about it. And oftentimes, because we are straddling these two generations and are of a previous generation, many of us on this call and probably a lot of people that are watching, it's very difficult sometimes to evolve and to change and to accept that this game that we love is changing. But as we said earlier, there's different perceptions of what beautiful is. And it still is the beautiful game with VAR and without VAR. All right. Thank you guys so much. And I'm going to throw it back to the studio right now.